Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm Sophie Alexander from the Nutritional Wellness Center of Ithaca, and I'm so excited to be joined here today by Jeff Smith from Standard Process, and we're going to be talking all about how to safely and healthily do a detox, specifically using Standard Process's several detox programs. And I think this is such a key thing to be doing right now, because not only is it it's finally becoming spring, and this is such a traditionally great time for cleansing the liver and getting ready for leaving everything from the winter behind and stepping into spring. But it's also a key way that you can really take control over your health and improve your health during this time of the pandemic. So welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
I'm going to pass it over to you to share this information with us.
Yeah. Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening in. And this is a very cool topic when it comes to purification, detoxification. And it's one that I'm used over the years, at least a dozen times or so. I can give you just a quick background on my story and why I'm here in front of you with Standard Process. I initially did my first purification when I was in chiropractic school, probably about 6 months into it. I had a professor, Dr. Mary Bellier, who's, I believe, a resident of Ithaca, actually, and teaches biochem, and she really introduced me to whole foods and Standard Process. And I did my first cleanse, and throughout chiropractic school, I probably did it 2 or 3 times, and each time really lost a good amount of weight, up to 20 pounds. But for me, it was really just getting back on track as far as eating healthy, especially during those times when you're taking 28, 29 credit hours a trimester. There's that stress can certainly be toxic. So since then, I graduated in 2009 from New York Chiropractic College and started into practice. Was in Canandaigua and Honeywell Falls for about 10 years, and then transitioned into working strictly with Standard Process and really educating the doctors and clinical nutritionists like Sophie here all throughout Western and Central New York. So I really enjoy this, certainly passionate about nutrition, and so there's kind of my little background. And as Sophie mentioned, this is just a wonderful time to do a purification and detoxification, and we can kind of use those words almost interchangeably, and we'll discuss that a little bit more later here. But we'll go ahead and get started. I got a lot of slides to go through. I'll probably kind of fast forward through a few of them, but we're going to start out and really talk about why somebody would want to do a detoxification. And as you can see from the screen, these are typically some of the main reasons why. Is it weight loss issues? Do you have poor digestion? Are you just tired all the time? Are you stressed? And we can certainly, feel for a lot of people right now that it is a stressful time. Even though a lot of us may be, in our homes and comfortable with the amount of food that we have and enjoying the time with family, we're just unsure of what's going on. So there's no shortage of veggies and fruits and things like that in the grocery stores now. Maybe toilet paper, but and some junk foods. But other than that, there's lots of veggies and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. And the reason why we want to remove these toxins from our body, and for a lot of people, it may be specifically weight. And I want to address that right off the bat. And this is an indirect way to monitor and hopefully lower your weight, but it's not the number one goal from a practitioner standpoint, for you to lose weight. We really want to clean the body up, and weight will kind of go where it needs to naturally. That's why we want to cleanse right there. Just the amount of junk that is around us all the time. And, I can imagine, most people listening to this that go into the Nutritional Wellness Center aren't consuming a lot of these junk foods. I hope. Sophie will find out. So watch yourselves. But there's going to be toxins that we can't avoid. We have to go outside we have to, be inside sometimes, and you can think of just the natural toxins that are, I'm looking around my office, and the chair is made of our formaldehyde derivative, and the chiropractic tables are as well, and how clean is your air? Do you have a purification system? We're getting through winter now where the windows have all been kind of closed up, so there's going to be dust and dander and things like that in the air, and we need to be able to process those accordingly. So this just kind of continues on that there's these toxins that are in the air, in the water. If you're drinking tap water, not really filtering that appropriately, if you're consuming caffeine and coffee and things like that. I always like to point out the household cleaning products that people use. I hope you're not using toxic ones. Are you on any medications? They can certainly cause some toxicities, and just those preservatives that they put in foods can certainly be toxic to the liver and digestive system and things. So I like to mention, in this discussion, the Environmental Working Group, this is ewg.org, I believe is the website. Yes, down there at the bottom. And I encourage people, you can go on there and spend just hours, actually. They've got a lot of very cool articles on latest health and on fracking and on meat. And every year they put out a wonderful database on sunscreen, making sure if you're going to be in the sun for a long period of time, you may want a sunscreen, but you want to make sure that it's a good quality one without toxins. And they do some other really cool things. So you can actually type in your zip code and get the water quality report, which is a pretty good feature as well. Yeah. And so certainly toxins can affect people differently. Certainly that fatigue and just tired all the time and not being able to sleep, food cravings going after just wanting excessive carbohydrates and all those. Mental clarity is a gigantic one that I always notice improves when I do a purification. And certainly low libido tends to be a big issue in society that not many people talk about, which is just not healthy. So there's a few different ways that these toxins can enter the body. We can certainly breathe them in, and they get into the lungs. They can certainly get into the digestive tract with things that we're eating. And then, another big one is skin penetration. So if we're putting, toxic lotions and toxic sunscreen that I mentioned, or hairspray, things like that, makeup even. I know you guys work closely with that in Ithaca. So make sure you're getting clean products because that's going to soak right in through the skin, and worse with skin is it bypasses the liver, gets right into the blood system, which is dangerous. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the organs that are used to remove some of the toxins from the body. Certainly the liver really is one of the most important. Kidneys are filtering the liquids through the body, and you're excreting that through urine, and then the small and large intestines should have a nice boundary, that boundary before it gets into the blood system. If it's not functioning well, then we start to see different autoimmune conditions going on. So we just want to create a good environment and give all the nutrients to the liver, to the kidney, and to the intestines, so you can process and remove these toxins. If you have a breakdown in any one of those, then you're going to have some issues. And this is just another depiction. I like to point out that things that we haven't mentioned before are the lymph. The lymph is this very cool network throughout the body, very similar to our vasculature, our veins and arteries. The lymph is even more complicated, and it removes all that dead debris and things that our macrophages kind of eat up. And we want to get them out of our body. So long as we've talked pretty much about all the other ones too. So let's go into just some liver detoxification, and I promise not to get too biochemically oriented here. Not my huge strength of mine anyway, but liver detoxification has a couple different phases, and really there's three phases. But phase one is that cytochrome P450 enzymes. And the most important thing I want people to understand that is if you need to go through all of these phases, if you only go through phase one, the end product of phase one is actually more toxic than what enters into phase one. So you need to have the nutrients to go through phase two, conjugation, to put that toxin into either a water-soluble form so you can excrete that through the kidneys, or you can put that into basically the feces so that can be removed in the stool. And that phase three would be that elimination. Let's get it out of the body. So we use the analogy a lot of the liver works like an oil filter in the car, and it certainly does so many other things. You know, it converts thyroid hormones, it converts T4 to T3. You know, I always like to mention that 70% of that conversion goes on there. So if you're subclinical hypothyroid or have that diagnosis, then one of the good things would be let's clean up your liver first. Before we give any, say, medications to support the thyroid. Clean up the liver, and then you start to see a lot of these other endocrine organs work better. One of the main functions of the liver is processing that body's stored sugar or glycogen, and that glycogen, there's only so much that can be stored in the liver. There's a certain amount that can be stored in the muscle tissue, and we want to use up that sugar. Once those the liver and the muscle tissue are in essence full, it gets stored into the blood as triglycerides, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. But it also creates bile, which is then stored in the gallbladder, and then as we eat certain foods, our senses recognize that we're eating good quality fats, I hope. And, then the gallbladder will, in essence, kind of squeeze that bile into the digestive tract right after the stomach, and it helps to emulsify or break down those fats so we can use those because all of the fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K have to be broken down by that bile and emulsified so we can make all of our hormones. So certainly cholesterol stems from all of those fat-soluble vitamins. So the liver also removes any excess hormones such as estrogen and epinephrine and others as well. So, a big term that we hear a lot is estrogen dominance. And if somebody's out of healthy body fat ranges, they're an estrogen dominance, and the liver is going to be the key organ to remove those excess estrogens. So here's some other things in diet that can lead to that toxic load. The MSG, which has all sorts of other names as well, the high fructose corn syrup, trans fats, sugar. Sugar is a big one. We're going to kind of hit on that pretty hard. So here's a cool depiction that everybody always loves to see, and this is 1988. The red states, or more than 35% of that state, is overweight. And you'll kind of see, as there goes 1992, and then 96, we see the trend. Here's 1999, and all it takes is one more, 2000, and we see that every single state, more than 35% of that population is overweight. And it really has not improved in the 20 years since this graph has come out. So just another quick one here. We tend to see obesity and diabetes really linked. As obesity goes up, so does diabetes. So the U.S., among some other wonderful things that we do here, we allow 3,000 chemicals to be added to our foods. And I don't have the exact figure, but I know Europe has about a tenth of that they have to actually log in as safe to be put in foods that people can consume that won't cause any issues. Well, the U.S. has over 3,000, and it's just amazing. And the average consumption of sugar is about 75 pounds. I think that's a little bit low. I think we've got a figure here that shows, in about 1820, it was about 4 pounds. And, this graph goes to 2000, and we're, at 100 pounds there. So It's a lot of sugar, and we'll see how sugar just really, feeds cancers. It causes a kind of sludgy blood. Obviously, diabetes becomes an end-stage issue with too much sugar consumption as well. And it really depresses the immune system. So this is just absolutely huge right now with our current situation in the U.S. And if you're consuming a high amount of sugar, then your immune system just doesn't work. And this was a study that showed 75 grams of sugar, and that's about what I like to see my patients consume on a daily, average. But if you look at, say, a soda or Mountain Dew or something like that, I think in one can or one bottle, say a 16 ounce, there's well over 75 grams in that one bottle. So if you consume that for 2 hours after, your cell-mediated immunity is dropped by 50%. So if somebody's consuming that throughout the day over and over and over again, your immune system just isn't working, period. So right now, we can tell that if your immune system is working properly, you're not going to have any issues with different pathogens that are you're coming in contact with. And the mechanism there is it messes with the vitamin C absorption in the cells, which is super important in immune function, as we know. So this was a pretty cool slide that the former representative in my position, Adam Davis, put together, and it looks at it, I only have 2 sodas per day, doc, and so he kind of did some numbers, and if you do that, you're consuming an extra 84,000 calories per year, and which would be equivalent to about 26 extra pounds. So in the amount of calories that you would have to burn on a regular basis just to stay even is huge. So eliminate the sugar is what it comes down to. And this won't all be negative, I promise, but the number of people with diabetes, we've got more than a third of adults have pre-diabetes, so they really aren't even diagnosed with it, whether they don't go to the doc or whatnot. But diabetes is just wreaking havoc on our cardiovascular health, as well as cognitive health and obesity and on and on and on. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, that excess triglycerides that's getting stored excess sugar. If your liver is full, the muscles are full, can't store anymore, it gets stored in the blood as triglycerides. So, that arterial sclerosis and things of that nature are mostly from sugar, really. And, just a quick story, everybody likes personal stories. Prior to becoming a chiropractor, I worked in pathology for a long time. I did hundreds of autopsies, and the first thing we would do is go in and look at the coronary arteries of the heart to see if someone had an MI or a myocardial infarction, and you would see these just globs of triglycerides or fat, and really you have to think of it this way, that when somebody's cholesterol is really, really high, it's because there's so much inflammation in the body, and that triglyceride is really there, and cholesterol is there to repair, but it just has become way out of control. And it gets to the point where it just clogs those arteries and they have issues. So soft drinks will beat them up for a little bit here. Outside of the sugar, the phosphoric acid is just leaches calcium from the bones. So I use the analogy of you drink a soda, next time you urinate, you can watch your bones go right down the toilet. It's just you want to avoid those as well. We do want to consume good fats, and during this cleanse, good fats make you feel full and satiated. So any kind of good natural fat is okay. Good organic butter, maybe organic Bailey out of Wisconsin, or Kerrygold. They're just good, really, really good choices. Some cold deep water fish oils, olive oil, or really anything that is natural. We just want to stay away from the bad fats, the hydrogenated oils, the soybean oil, the canola, anything that's been processed, you want to avoid. here's some labels. We'll kind of blast through this, but these are really some everyday products. This one right here, for example, is a salad dressing. So somebody makes a wonderful salad with a ton of great veggies, and then they put soybean and canola oil all over it with sodium EDTA, which is a preservative, and MSG and artificial colors, and on. So it just kind of ruins it. So consuming good salad dressings, whether it's just olive oil and some type of vinegar, or primal dressings are one of my favorites here recently. There's another company, I think it's called Chosen Foods, I want to say, that has some nice, they're really good actually too. They use avocado oil as a base, so really tasty. So, one of the questions I always get is, well, how do I know if I need to purify? And there's a couple questionnaires out there that someone can do. The toxicity questionnaire is wonderful. It's one of those questionnaires that you can do pre and post cleanse, so within a month's time. The system survey, little less frequently. Usually I have patients do that every 3 to 4 months or so, but it gives you just an overall idea of how the body's working. So what can happen in these 21 days? Certainly the elimination of those toxins, the healthier weight, healthier lifestyle, more energy, better sleep, mental clarity, all that stuff are going to be achieved. So there was a study done on the standard process 21-day purification. This was a retrospective study, so they went back and looked at 28 different chiropractic patients that did this, including really there is a caloric restriction, but it's good quality foods, and certainly the supplements along with that. And they looked at weight, they looked at the serum lipid panels, so cholesterol mainly, and we'll go through that. So this is the same patient right here, and had a big drop in cholesterol from 44 to 182, and look at that, the triglycerides dropped from 787 to 108. So big numbers there. Here's another patient that had a good drop as well, and we'll kind of go through these because here's the study results. So post cleanse, average of the 28 people, they had a drop of 72 with their cholesterol, and a drop of 49 with their triglycerides. And slight drop in HDL, which it's not a huge drop by any means, but HDL is technically that good cholesterol, but a good drop in LDLs as well. So here's just a quick picture of standard process and the farm. This was taken a while ago when I was in practice, and my wife was a nurse here in Canandaigua, and now we're well over 1,000 acres of organic farm in the Kettle Moraine of Wisconsin, and it'd be interesting to see how many millions of pounds of vegetables that we've produced in 2020. I'll have to update the PowerPoint, but there's some of the different veggies that we do grow on the farm. Just a very, very cool place. So the 21-day purification is what we're going to go over first, and there are a few different products involved. So that SP cleanse, which is really what you're doing in the beginning at some really good high doses, and then you're doing a protein powder. There's a few different choices there, SP Complete or the SP Complete Dairy Free, and now we have SP Complete Chocolate and Vanilla, which is very nice. And then there's a choice of fiber between the Gastro-Fiber, which is a capsule, and then whole food fiber would be the other choice, which is a powder, where you just basically put that right in your shake. And then after the SP cleanse is done, you kind of break into the SP green food for the last 2 weeks. So we'll kind of break these down here a little bit as well. So the SP cleanse, this is really the nuts and bolts. This is what's going to provide liver all the nutrients it needs to process those toxins. It's certainly going to help with the kidney. There's some juniper berry in there, which is a natural diuretic. So great kidney support, digestive support, and going to help with that elimination. And here's some of the ingredients. I mentioned the juniper berry. There's some red clover, some apple pectin, which is a nice fiber, burdock, barley grass, which has a ton of vitamins and minerals and nutrients in there. Spanish black radish, which is just an absolutely wonderful supplement for increasing drainage and detoxification. A little Oregon grapefruit, and then fenugreek, which is one of my favorites as well. So the protein powders, there are several different choices. The SP Complete here has a base of whey. The SP Complete dairy-free would be a rice protein. And then we do have some other ones out there. We'll talk a little bit about them later that are some vegetarian proteins, pea, pumpkin seed, sesame seed protein as well. You know, the only difference between some of those is they don't have all the greens in them. The SP Complete, and again, you can get this in chocolate and vanilla too, has a bunch of greens in there as well, some veggies. So we'll look at that. It has the barley grass, it has the rice and buckwheat, which is gluten-free. You know, so I always like to mention that buckwheat is gluten-free. It has flax. There's some alfalfa in there, which has lots of calcium and magnesium. There's some grapeseed and red wine extract, so you can certainly say that you're getting some sort of red wine during the cleanse. And then we mentioned buckwheat, and then choline and inositol are part of the B complex. And here's the SP Green Food. This has 5 organically grown whole foods, and it's going to really continue to support that liver phase 1, phase 2 detoxification after the first week when you start that. And just a ton of phytonutrients in here and helps to eliminate those toxins. And so it's got Brussels sprouts and kale and buckwheat and barley grass and some more alfalfa. So, you know, how many people are you know, just eating these constantly every single day in good therapeutic doses. You know, I encourage you to continue to eat these even during the cleanse, but you have to understand that you know, these are really concentrated foods that Standard Process uses, and you know, taking them in the doses here would require you to eat a lot of them on your plate. So the whole food fiber, and certainly, you know, Sophie has the ability to kind of test you to what would work best in your situation. But my general guideline is somebody who doesn't want additional capsules can do the powder, the whole food fiber. And then one of the other things is if somebody's prone to constipation, then I typically use the whole food fiber. The Gastro-Fiber has some psyllium in it, and sometimes psyllium can bind people up a little bit. So I'm usually fine. I actually like the taste of Gastro-Fiber. If you're someone who doesn't like to do a lot of capsules and pills, you can just open them right up and put that powder right in your shake, really. And I've been known to do that with the SP cleanse and the Gastro-Fiber. It's a little time consuming. You know, if you make your 3 shakes for the day and you're putting, you know, 21 of the SP cleanse in there a day, and the Gastro-Fiber, it can, you know, a little time consuming, but you can certainly, you know, have that option. And one quick little note too, and you know, Sophie can certainly test you for numbers of these. You know, usually the whole kits, the Gastro-Fiber has 150 capsules, so a whole kit will come with 2 bottles. The dose of it is normally 9 a day for the whole 21 days. If you drop that down to 7 per day, 1 bottle will get you through the whole cleanse. So just a little quick trick that doesn't really change the therapeutic value of the whole cleanse. So it can help people economically. So there's certainly some other products that during the cleanse somebody may need. You know, if someone's super active and wants to continue to work out, the first 10 days, we'll go into, you know, what you eat during that here shortly, but you know, typically that days 1 through 10 are vegetarian. Doesn't have to be that way by any means, but if you are and you're really active, you might want to have some additional protein in there. I highly encourage people, you have to have a good fat with the shake. So something like the tuna omega-3 oil or cod liver oil, or even the calamari oil, which is a liquid, and you can just put a teaspoon of that in the shake, and it really gives it a nice citrusy flavor. It doesn't taste like squid. And if someone has major sugar handling issues, then the gymnema is a herb through MediHerb, and that literally translates to sugar destroyer. And it anesthetizes sweet taste buds. It's wonderful for rebuilding the beta cells in the pancreas. So if you have a sweet tooth, that gymnema can really help you, especially in the beginning. You typically would need to do it the whole time. So here's kind of an eating pattern. Really, the first days 1 through 10, you got unlimited raw, organic, if possible, fruits and vegetables. And I, particularly the green leafy. And you want to eat twice as many vegetables as fruit. This is extremely important to make sure that that carbohydrate level is low. Now, I never removed it. I know technically, if you look at the booklet, the brown rice has been removed, and they've replaced it with quinoa. I love the lentils are still in there. Lentils are just a great choice. But I think the wild and brown rice are certainly, good choices too, especially if you get them organic. And then quinoa is also, a wonderful choice. Lots of water, lots. And I think, I use just a general guideline that you take your weight and you cut that number in half. And that's how many ounces of water that you should have per day. And you can certainly include tea or the water that you do put in the shakes. You can include that too, because, certainly that can, if you're 200 pounds, 100 ounces of water is a lot of water, especially if you're not used to it. But after a while, you'll certainly be able to get used to it and not feel like you have to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes. We talked about the good quality oil, and you can certainly get like a good flax oil or something down at Green Star or any company there that would have a good quality oil. And exercise, that's always a good question that people bring up. How much should I be exercising? And I tend to say during that first days 1, 2, 3, 4, you're going to hit some detox reactions. So don't push yourself and feel like you got to go out and run a marathon or go to CrossFit or do these high intensity workouts. Get the rest, get the water, get your nutrients that you need. And as you start feeling good, then I think you can go out and exercise as you'd like. For most people, it's just getting out and taking a good walk. And if you're doing that 4 or 5 times a day for, good, 30, 45 minutes, I know that the cardiovascular benefit always kicks in if you've maintained, a high heart rate or heart rate, higher than your normal for at least 20 to 25 minutes. That's where we start to see the cardiovascular benefit after that. So at days 11 through 21, you continue that same eating plan, but you can add back some lean protein. So some fish, even like things like venison, turkey, chicken, things like that are all good choices. And really, if this is something that you're interested in doing, but I can't do vegetarian for the first 10 days, adding some chicken, say some soups early on is not a bad thing to do. You can certainly do that. I don't want anybody to not do the cleanse because they can't eat meat. And I've done it both ways. I've done it completely to the book and vegetarian and gotten to day 11 and you're like, I don't know. I actually, a couple times that happened, I just forgot about it. I didn't even realize that I could add in meat and I was okay with it. And then other times I've done meat right through. And so either way, I think the one important note on that is animal protein takes the body a lot to break down. So giving your body a little bit of a break is not a bad idea, just cutting that out for a little bit. So what to avoid, all the man-made garbage, I don't think I hope nobody's eating margarine anymore or any of these other bad oils, no caffeine and alcohol. So, those are two, it'll be interesting to see the numbers, currently in the U.S. of, I think, alcohol consumption has gone up 30%. They're essential. So, people have certainly been kind of stuck at home. They don't have to drive anywhere. Hey, where's my glass of wine and whatnot. So if you're consuming a lot of caffeine and alcohol, start to drop that down. Don't just quick cold turkey and then think you're going to, be okay. Your detox reactions will lessen if you can kind of wane off some of these things. Certainly the tobacco, other stimulants, soft drinks, nuts and dairy, things like that. We can certainly have the argument that, whether they're healthy or not, some people are, allergic to them. So start to remove those, because really what we're trying to do here is have a non-allergenic diet and get you kind of on an even keel. So if you've had some allergies in the past, let's just get the diet nice and clean. And then after, we can start to add things back one at a time to really recognize if that, nut is a problem for you. So no processed refined foods, eliminate the canned veggies and the dried fruit, no cured, smoked, or luncheon meat, things like that. So with the supplements, during days 1 through 7, I really need 2 shakes at a minimum, because that's giving you a good amount of protein, up to 3 shakes. And, kind of an idea, I usually wake up, have a nice shake in the morning, and then, I have a ton of veggies and things like that I would snack on throughout the day, have a good salad for lunch. And then I usually did my second shake around 2, 3 in the afternoon. Just worked out well for me and my schedule. And then, good dinner, and then another shake at night. Sometimes if I was just so full or ate a late dinner or something, I might not have that third shake. But, 2 to 3 shakes. The first 7 days, you're doing 7 SP cleanse 3 times a day. So that's 21 of them a day. And that's 1 bottle. You'll be done with that. And then throughout the whole cleanse, you're doing the fiber. So if it's Gastro-Fiber, it would be 9 a day, or 1 tablespoon of the whole food fiber per shake. And then after you're done, so the second week, you're adding the SP green food at 5 capsules twice a day. So you're doing 10 of those a day, and you're still continuing with the fiber and the shakes. So here's kind of just a quick general, shake recipe. You'll notice kind of half a banana is always kind of great to flavor. Now, the purification in the last couple of years, since we have the chocolate and vanilla, has really changed for me, because I find that I don't use my blender nearly as much. I got a shaker bottle, I put the water in there, I put like 1 ice cube, and then I put my SP Complete. I kind of mix them up. I do half chocolate, half vanilla, shake it up and down the hatch. But there are lots of recipes for shakes. I know this is, kind of the classic one, but you'll notice that there's a lot of fruit in there. So you have to really balance that with a lot of greens and a lot of veggies on the other end. Or if you have a Vitamix or a really nice Ninja or something like that, you can certainly throw a handful of kale or spinach or something like that in the shake as well. And so side effects, certainly a potential. I've experienced probably all of these, maybe not so much skin issues in the dozen that I've done, but every time it's a little different. And the first few times that I did it, around 2006, 7, I'd get into like day 2 or 3, and I'd start to have this cold, runny nose, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I'm like, I've never eaten this healthy ever. And I've got a little bit of cold, and finally realized, I'm like, that's just detox reaction, and I've had times where more recently, I think not this past time I did it, but the time before that, first night I just went out to the couch, mind racing, kind of all over the place, and so didn't get much sleep that night. Woke up, a little bit tired because I didn't get great sleep, but I was fine and never had any issues from there on. So. And the headaches, if you're heavy on caffeine, that can be an issue. All of these are potential. Remember, skin is the largest organ of detoxification, so you could be having a purging of toxins through the skin. So the one key thing, especially with skin, is let it go. Don't suppress it. Just let those things come out, because everything will kind of normalize after a short period of time. So. Constipation, diarrhea could certainly wane a little bit. I do like to note that if you are having excessive constipation, then certainly give your nutritional wellness center a quick call, because if you're detoxifying, we have to get that out. And if you're not having bowel movements, for 2 or 3 days, and you're eating for 2 or 3 days, yeah, that could be a problem. Kind of back it up a little bit. So certainly touch base with them, but make sure your water intake is up. That's usually the first thing that I have people do. And a bead a day. That's like secure for everything. Just have 1 bead a day. So weight loss during detoxification, it's a wonderful natural side effect. We talked about that earlier. And this is kind of on average, really 8 to 15 pounds. I've certainly, I've experienced about 20 pounds of weight loss. I've heard of other stories of people losing even more. And then I've heard of people not losing much of anything. And that is certainly possible. I've had cases in practice where they haven't, and then they do their cleanse again in 6 months, and then they lose. And one of the key factors I think here is, how are your clothes fitting, number one? Are you finding that, your weight's the same, but you're down a belt buckle, you're down, and looking at body fat measurement, I think is much better option than weighing yourself. So you can get a nice Tanita scale. It's Tanita's TANITA for $50-$60, and that'll look at your body fat, body water, because a lot of times if your weight stays the same, body fat has gone down 2-3%, and that just means you have more muscle now. So so there's my thing on weight loss. It's have it be a natural side effect. So we'll kind of just blast through this a little bit. You guys all know to not eat junk, and we'll go through this real quick, and then I want to touch base a little bit on SP Detox balance here before we finish up. How well our body detoxifies definitely determines our susceptibility to disease. And if we take in these toxins quicker than the body can rid them, we're in big trouble. Toxic overload is a silent killer. And that last statement there, toxins usually do not affect just one system. And they never just affect one system. They affect everything. So from liver to digestion to sugar handling. And endocrine system tends to be one of the end stages of brain just not working real well. So cool. So I'm just gonna very quickly here hop over to the SP Detox Balance, because the SP Detox Balance is a newer product from Standard Process that really eliminated the need to do all of the capsules. And when our research department was looking at the purification program, which has been around for well over 20 years, has really gotten a lot of great results. But they wanted to add even more nutrients to the formula. They added some amino acids, they added some creatine to it, they added clove artichoke, they added more Spanish black radish, and just created a powder that you can do, and we can, vary the doses. You kind of start low and then ramp up as the detoxification goes. Nice option for some people. So we'll kind of go into this, and we've really hit toxins pretty hard. Now, I don't know, this is 80,000 chemicals are registered for use in the US. That's a lot. Using 800 million pounds of herbicides. Ugh. Can't look at that stuff anymore. So we've kind of gone through these before, and there's your liver detoxification, there's your phase 1, and we've kind of hit all of that, so we'll blast through. So the SP Detox Balance, this is a plant-based, there's no whey in it, it is vegetarian. You're doing 1 to 3 shakes per day, and you don't have to do any other additional supplements like we've chatted about. So there's certain things that you want to make sure your vitamin D level, your B12 levels up to snuff before you start this. We've talked about the coffee and alcohol, they did expand on the 21-day and made it 28-day, and the majority of people are really going to have to go through that 28-day detoxification. The 10-day programs that we offer are really for those people who just want a little pick-me-up. I tend to find, after summer, picnics and outside and parties and things like that. I'm like, after Labor Day, I'm like, okay, I just need a quick 10-day just to get me back on eating healthy and cleaning everything up. Now, the reason they extended it to 28-day is because they found that detoxification just doesn't stop, say, on day 22 when you end the 21-day. And if you go back to that normal eating plan that you're doing prior, you can have these toxins that are, in essence, kind of free-floating around the body. You haven't eliminated them yet, and they'll reabsorb, and they tend to reabsorb in fatty tissue. So one of those things being the brain. So extending that out to 28-day gives you the ability to go through that detoxification process, a little farther, and then kind of come down a little bit that last week. So that's one of the reasons why they did that. So here's the 10-day, and you can see there's some guidebooks and things like that that'll walk you through doing this. There's a 28-day. You'll see kind of turn detoxification on, maintaining it, and you'll see, Sophie and I had a chance to talk a little bit before we started today, and 3 shakes, it's a lot. And you'll find some people are going to find they're pretty full from doing the shakes. They might need a little extra digestive support, or they just might not be able to get 2-3 shakes per day, and that's okay, because there's a lot of raw veggies in here, and they can certainly cause some bloating and some digestive issues if you're not used to eating super healthy. So here's the SP Detox Balance. They more recently in late fall, we now have an SP Detox Balance unflavored. So when this originally came out, it's a chai flavor. So it has a little bit of nutmeg and a little bit of cinnamon in there as well to make that chai flavor. And the reason they did that is because of the ingredients. Really, there's a lot of Spanish black radish in there, and it's potent. I don't know if you guys have been on Spanish. I know you guys use a lot of Spanish black radish, and you open that cap and you smell it, and like, that is pungent stuff. And I know some people, you can find them around, and they'll cook them up too. But they found that the vanilla and chocolate just wasn't quite enough. So so you can use that chai, and you can just use the normal version. And really, chai can be kind of a strong. I was a little worried when it first came out. What I find a lot of people do now is just add 1 scoop of the SP Complete Chocolate to it, and it just gives it a pretty tasty shake. So they up the protein per serving to 17 grams. And we've kind of hit that as well. We've kind of hit those as well. So here's kind of some of the ingredients. It's certainly a good source of magnesium in that K1. It's made of pea protein. It's got flax, sweet potato, oats, pumpkin seed protein, buckwheat, carrots, Spanish black radish, apple pectin. So some of those similar ones that you saw in the other 21-day that it just all in that shake. And here's kind of a sample meals. You guys will have access to that as you go through it. And really, the kits with this, they do come with a shaker bottle. If you use a 28-day, so they'll come with that. And cool. So that is really the whole story of purification and detoxification. We're recording now, not quite live, so I won't take any questions at this point. But if you have them, I'm sure you can touch base with Sophie. I know, just thinking of the normal questions that come along. Certainly, medications are one of them. If you're on like a high blood pressure medication or diabetic medication and things, and as a chiropractor, I was never allowed to touch anybody's medication. You always have to talk with your prescribing physician with those. But I certainly do encourage you to monitor. So if you're looking at your blood sugar, your blood pressure, the need for those medications may go down here, which is certainly a good thing. So you want to monitor everything, and then contact your doctor. They might alter the dose, which would certainly be wonderful. So I think that's really kind of a lot of the questions that I get. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and it's a wonderful time to go through this right now. It's going to certainly help with some of the stressors that we're dealing with, and we're kind of all hunkered in at home. So you can spend a little bit more time cooking some great meals. And as you mentioned, Sophie, spring is a wonderful time to cleanse and, get in beach body shape for summer.
I know. I've heard this horrible phrase going around of the quarantine 19. Have you heard that one, Jeff?
The 19 pounds? Or?
The 19 pounds, basically. These people being stuck at home and stress eating or overeating. And so, yeah, this is a really wonderful way to shift that around.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you so much, Jeff, for sharing all this with us. It's really exciting. I mean, I use more of the 21-day program in practice. I have just more personal experience with it and have done that one myself many times. But I'm having more and more clients do the SB Detox Shake too, and a lot of positive feedback about the flavor and doing that, and just being a different way to do it. So I really encourage you, if you're interested in this, to please contact the office, because we can talk you through what's the best option for you. As Jeff was saying, there's multiple fiber options. What might be the best option for that? And just point you towards the resources, because there are, like, when we order it for you, each kit does come with a booklet, and there's a whole also online Facebook group and a lot of great resources on the Standard Process website too. So it's folks who've done it usually have very positive feedback just about all the new recipes they get exposed to as well. So.
Yeah, you can actually, I can mention very quickly, when you go to standardprocess.com, you can complete surveys. Mm-hmm. And one other thing I was going to mention as well. But yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. So if you just need any refresher on any of this information, or just want to talk through what might be right for you, or talk about the possibility of you doing this, please call us or email, and we'll get your kit ordered. And again, thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us. Really appreciate having the PowerPoint and just going into more detail about all this important information.
Absolutely. Well, it's a pleasure, and thank you, and have fun with it.
Yeah, and thank you. And the only other thing I was going to mention is, unfortunately, we did have technical difficulties, so unfortunately we weren't able to do this connected to Facebook Live. We're sending this out after the fact, but so we're not taking any live questions now, but yet another reason.
Yeah, and we can do that in the future too.
Yeah, but we can always do it again and try and get all the technology to line up. All right. Be well, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, take care.